All right, y'all. Welcome back to the show. It's Antiwar Radio. I'm Scott Horton, and our next guest on the show today is Jim Hanon. He is the writer, director, and filmer of the new movie documentary. It's called The Little Town of Bethlehem, and the website is littletownofbethlehem.org. A very compelling flick. I hope you guys have opportunity to check it out. Welcome to the show. How are you doing, Jim?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Well, I really appreciate you joining us on the show today, and I really appreciate this movie. It's very interesting stuff. I'm sorry I didn't get to watch all of it all the way through to the end, but I watched the vast majority of it last night, this morning. And basically, it's the story of three men who live in Israel/Palestine there. Why don't you tell us about them?
Well, it's a Palestinian Christian, Sami Awad, who sort of grew up and was born right before the 72 Olympic, sort of tragedy that we all kind of know about. Ahmad Al-Azza is a Palestinian Muslim, and then Yonatan Shapira is an Israeli Jew. The three of these people sort of look at the conflict from their respective sides, and they inherited the conflict from their grandfathers and their fathers. But they found each other by the nonviolence movement and wanting to sort of change the status quo and see what else they could do.
Well, now, I believe it's the Palestinian Christian who says that he found, or maybe it was the Israeli Jew, I forget, who says that he found Martin Luther King as a young person.
Yeah, that's really Sami Awad. Sami Awad, he was young when the first Intifada happened, but his uncle Mubarak Awad had founded the Nonviolent Center in Jerusalem, Palestinian Nonviolent Center in Jerusalem, and really had done a lot of research and really was modeling after Dr. Martin Luther King. They found a lot of connection because of the equality. They really felt like their struggle was one of being able to be seen as an equal human being and being able to be treated that way, being under occupation. So that really was a model for them. But I found all three protagonists referencing Dr. King and a lot of Dr. King quotes, as well as Mahatma Gandhi.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's so important, in fact, you play this clip, I think the part of the I Have a Dream speech that you play in there, about equality there. That's the single most important thing that Martin Luther King ever did, as far as I can tell, was give that speech and basically call out the American people, whether we believe in the Declaration of Independence or don't we, that everybody's created with the same natural right to themselves and their own destiny as each other or not. And so, this is our creed in this country. You're either for it or you're not. But it's interesting to me that, obviously that has a lot of appeal to underdogs all over the world, but it's not necessarily that natural rights theory, John Lockean kind of point of view. That doesn't necessarily have to be intertwined with pacifism and nonviolence. After all, he's just paraphrasing our Declaration of Independence, which was really a declaration of war against the king. So I think it's interesting that these guys really picked up on, what Dr. King had to say about natural rights theory, but then secondly, they also picked up on his strategy and tactics as well. Yeah.
And really, I'm glad you sort of referenced the whole history of that because it's the basis of a civil society. Dr. King was referencing equality as an inherent human right, but he was also working in America saying, well, here we have an inequality in America that's contrary to what America, says it is established and doing, and therefore it is the right of the citizenry to, vocalize and protest and inequality in a nonviolent way. And then the civil rights movement, it was pretty powerful because it gave an identity to the African-American community at a time when everybody in the world was sort of looking at it, feeling it may be wrong, feeling, or even sort of taking a pass at it. And then there was Malcolm X and Louis Farrakhan who had different tactics than King in the civil rights movement that, somebody from the outside couldn't join. But because King was nonviolent, it sort of made it possible for Jews and whites and anybody to sort of say, hey, this segregation thing, this lack of equality, this treating another American citizen as less than a human being is not right, and we need to change it. And guess what happened? Our country became better because of it. It became better for, white people because of it as well. Because, it's like what Dr. King had said. He said that freedom is to free the oppressed, but also to free the oppressor from being an oppressor. So the fact that, the Palestinians and the Israelis in the nonviolence movement are taking all of this in and sort of saying, what does it mean for a civil society to emerge in Palestine and Israel? Because the alternative is a police state.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to me, too, about, I believe the Christian in your movie talks about support from evangelical Christians for Zionism, for the occupation, and how it's so interesting to me that, in America, pretty much everybody assumes that all Palestinians are Muslims, and you can't really even get Christians in America to recognize that there are Christian Palestinians. And, geez, if Muslim Palestinians aren't human beings, what about the Christian ones? Like, not even them, And it turns out that, the way they act is in favor of those who would slaughter and steal land from Palestinian Christians.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about Israel. I'm talking about the right-wing settlers who are occupying the West Bank.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, one of the toughest, person to ever be would be a Palestinian Christian, because according to a lot of Christian theology, the land is given to Israel. It's a biblical kind of a mandate. And therefore, if you're a Palestinian Christian and you're kind of have a Christian community in the United States telling you that, well, really, you have to get out of the way or not exist in order for prophecy to be fulfilled, I mean, that's really tough. I mean, not only are you sort of branded a terrorist because there are factions that have done that, and because you haven't, you don't have a voice, but to face that as well is really difficult. And so, Sammy's journey in the film shares a bit of that, and I think it's sort of important for people to realize.
Yeah, it certainly is. And, we have this problem always with, trying to convince Americans that foreigners are people too. And it seems like if we can point out that, hey, some of them are Christians, their soul is saved the same way as yours. What about them? Is it okay to just, occupy them? But then that brings up the other question of whether, substantial numbers of the American people even understand that the West Bank and the Gaza Strip are occupied territory. A lot of times, I think, the information is so scarce and vague and it only referred to kind of offhand on TV. People might think that these Palestinians just won't leave the Israelis alone.
Yeah, and that's something that we're seeing as the film is screened on colleges and universities. I mean, to a man, we hear people say, man, there's so much here we didn't know. There's so much here that we wish we would have known. This really does show us another side of this coin that we really didn't have any sense of. And that, I think, is an indictment against Western media, kind of in general, but this idea that here is a civil rights issue and an issue these people have been in refugee camps since 48. And, it's sort of untenable. I mean, I really believe that Israel should be safe and secure, but if their freedom is built on the prison of the Palestinians, then I think we're not really seeing the issue. We're not actually ever going to solve the issue until we solve the issue of equality.
All right, now, so tell us about the Little Town of Bethlehem, or give us a short little overview before we go out to this first break, if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a film that just tells the story of three people that grew up in the conflict from different sides and how they found each other through the nonviolence movement, and how they found inspiration through Dr. King and Mahatma Gandhi.
Okay, well, hold it right there, Jim. Everybody, it's Jim Hanon. The website is littletownofbethlehem.org, and we'll be right back after this. All right, y'all, welcome back to the show. It's Antiwar Radio. I'm talking with Jim Hanon. He put together this movie, Little Town of Bethlehem.